Give me a break. That was the response from BC's Premier, David Eby, when asked about the impact of short-term rentals on long-term rental rates. Interesting response to hear from a Premier when considering a news publication on a major issue that has rocked the core of British Columbia real estate and divided people left to right. What am I talking about? Well, as of October of 2023, the NDP government in BC has announced new legislation which is going to take effect in early 2024, specifically in the spring, that will actually reduce or eliminate short-term rentals such as Airbnb, VRBO, and the like from circulation. Absolutely crazy. That's the only way to describe it from most of the people that we spoke to, and not even just people who owned our Airbnb properties, but from those frequent them. Hey guys, I'm Alex McFadden, and you are currently watching the Flow State YouTube channel. If you like the content and you want more of this, hit that like button, the subscribe button. But you're here today to learn more about the short-term rental rules that came into effect just recently and were just announced. Now, as of recording this episode in the end of October 2023, there is still information that has not been announced, but a lot of it has. And so we're going to summarize to you specifically what happened, what's going to be expected, and the potential fallout from the short-term regulations that have been imposed by the NDP government. Let's start off. So what exactly happened? Well, the BC NDP announced essentially an elimination of all secondary properties or non-primary residences from being able to advertise and or rent out their properties as a short-term rental, which basically means if you aren't living in the property as your primary residence and you were previously renting this property out for anything less than 90 days, that's how they're defining it. So anything less than 90 days, not even 30-day rentals, well, you are no longer going to be able to do that as of April 2024, which essentially means they've taken nearly all Airbnb or short-term or VRBO properties out of circulation for most cities and major municipalities. Now, the one exception to this rule, there's a few exceptions. One of the exceptions to the rule specifically is that if it's your primary residence, you can rent out a portion of your house, which includes a rental basement suite or laneway house. The other exception is that if you are on a native leased land reserve, you can specifically still do Airbnb properties if it's not your primary residence. And the last exception is that if you're in a town of less than 10,000 people, you can still Airbnb in your property. So notable cities like Pemberton, Whistler, other areas like Fernie, BC that are known for ski towns and the like, can still continue doing short-term rentals. But many major communities that were typically relied upon, such as Victoria, Kelowna, Vancouver, and other hot markets will no longer be able to offer Airbnb properties to those traveling for work, pleasure, or anything else. Now, undoubtedly, this will have a major impact on tourism. It'll have a major impact on people traveling within the province or coming to the province for that matter. And generally speaking, it'll have a major impact on the hotel and motel tourism industries. So let's go through a couple of the other details. So one of the reasons that they're taking this approach is supposedly because of the impact on long-term rental supply. So the idea is that by eliminating the short-term rental stock, they believe that this will go back into the long-term rental stream and it will eventually dilute the market, therefore providing more long-term rental opportunities for people. And their other suggestion is that we will see a reduction of rental values. Now, there's a couple bones that we have to pick with that, or a couple holes in that idea. Number one, most of the people who own these properties, they only own 1, 2, or even maybe just 3 of these properties. There's only a very few select people that own 5 to 10 to 15 Airbnb properties. So there's not very many of them. And with interest rates increasing over the last couple of years and general costs going up, most of these people are likely not going to want to keep these properties as long-term rentals. And in many circumstances, they just don't want to deal with long-term tenants. So that's a problem in itself, especially with BC's tenancy laws, not only having rental caps, but having things on the side of the tenant, which nothing wrong with good tenants, but it is very heavily sided towards a tenant. And so in many circumstances, we believe that people will end up selling these properties, possibly at a loss if they purchased it in the last 3 years, due to the fact that people bought these properties specifically because they were actually there for Airbnb. So we believe that many will sell it, and the end users will probably be people looking to occupy the units, which will take away some of the rental stock. And then for those that rent it out, well, they're not going to want to get less than the market. They're probably going to want to seek and find rental rates that are high or close to the top of the market. In addition, many of these people have purchased furniture for thousands and thousands of dollars, and so they may choose to continue to do as short of a term as they possibly can, even 3-month rentals or 6-month rentals. Some of the other considerations that the BC government talked about when making these rules, they talked about the fact that short-term rental market has grown significantly with a 20% annual growth, Well, we have to remember the last few years, people have been traveling mostly within BC, specifically because of COVID. The regulations and the rules, 2020 and 2021 were record highs for Airbnb. And in 2022, it started to come down, specifically in 2023. So the market was already shifting and changing. And we already saw some people move away from the Airbnb model. So we do believe that the market would have found its way regardless. And this is probably a little bit of a overstep or an unnecessary move. Other considerations to think about: hotels and motels. Again, they will not be regulated. They can continue to offer short-term considerations. But here's a thought. In most major cities or communities, such as Kelowna, as mentioned previously, and or Victoria, and specifically Vancouver, there aren't enough hotels as it is, which leads to insanely high rental rates. Hotels in general tend to be less cleanly, and they don't spend as much time on upkeep in many circumstances. And people opt to stay in Airbnbs because of more space, being in neighborhoods, and just generally speaking, better quality. I've seen it myself firsthand, and so I can say I've experienced this. This will put everything back into the hotel hands, and it's not that hotels are the evil overlord, but at the end of the day, they run a business, and now that they have full and complete control, there's no reason that they would look to lower the rates, and likely they will end up increasing the rates, which will push more consumers out and away from BC, looking to vacation other areas, other provinces, such as Alberta, down south in Washington, or potentially in California. Which is interesting about this specific move today is that they've also completely wiped out potential businesses. There are operators who run management for Airbnb properties who do an incredible job and have their livelihood and employ tens of 15s of people for cleaning and other things that keep people employed and in business. And most of these people will completely lose most of their work overnight. So suffice to say, is this the right move for the NDP government? Is the federal government going to get involved and look at changing any of these rules? Difficult to say, highly unlikely. You usually don't see governments come back on any of the rules, but it's just one more aggressive step that the NDP has taken over the last couple of months to try and change the rental stock consideration in our market. We still believe, or I still believe, that this current market is the problem of a lack of supply in general, and that with the way things are going forward, we still don't have enough building. There's too much red tape, and the primary focus of our NDP government likely should have been a focus on specifically how to get more supply versus how to restrict the supply that was available and look to convert from people over there. We'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear from you. If you have an opinion or a thought, comment below. Let me know what you think about these changes. Right, wrong, indifferent? What are your opinions? Would love to definitely know. And again, as always, if you're finding value from this channel, hit that like and that subscribe button below. I'll see you next time.